There are things that the left and their propaganda machine will never really fully understand, like ever. And the most glaringly obvious thing that they'll never understand is people, just real people. They just will never get or understand actual people.
Another thing interesting in this polling was more independents said that they worry about President Biden weakening democracy than Trump, 53% to 42%. What do you make of this?
I find it shocking, honestly. I can't, make sense of that number. I wish I could. I wish I had some really great insight to it. But I don't know if it's an outlier or not, because the other numbers with independents and Biden are going in the right direction. So that may be it. But also, just one thing I wanted to add on to what Basil said. This trial's not on TV. You guys do a great job reporting what's happening. But if there aren't those images coming out of the courthouse, people feel like they know this story. We've heard about it for a long time. So it doesn't surprise me that they're not interested.
Well, thank you both so much for being.
Isn't it amazing watching these people? She says, another thing that's interesting here, people, they think Biden is a danger, that he's not good for democracy. And the panelist says, I'm shocked. I just can't make sense of that. I wish I had some great insight. So obviously she's a true believer, man. But this is just another reminder of why you do not get high on your own supply. But they're shocked. But you know who's not shocked? Literally anyone who is actually paying attention for even the last few months, if not the last few years. And these people see it. These propagandists, they're just not aware, man. But here's what I think is so surprising to them. I think it's surprising that no one believes they're garbage anymore. They've been telling anyone that will listen that Trump is a would-be dictator, that he's an insurrectionist, he's a criminal, promises a bloodbath, yada, yada, yada. And now they're shocked that no one believes them. That's what's got them shocked. This is what has them shocked.
Now, as you're waking up, the results of a New York Times Siena college poll are showing that more than half of all registered voters see the mainstream media as a threat to democracy in the United States.
Americans are extremely more polarized, and polling continuously shows that. Our population gets news from vastly different sources. We don't agree on what the facts are.
Joining me live for a closer look at that New York Times Siena College poll is Dre Clark. Good morning, Dre.
Let's take a look at these poll numbers together here. According to this poll conducted of registered voters conducted by the New York Times and Siena College, 59% of voters see the media as a threat to democracy. 25% consider the threat to be minor, and the remaining 15% see no threat at all. Now, this is also very interesting and telling according to the poll. 87% of voters who supported former President Donald Trump in 2020, they view the media as a threat, while 33% of President Biden supporters and voters say the same thing. Now, the New York Times also noting that 14% of voters say political views reveal a lot about a person's character, whether they're a good person or a bad person. But 34% polls said it doesn't mean anything at all. Also, the poll revealing that nearly 1 in 5 political disagreements have hurt relationships among family members and friends.
None of these polls are surprising. I mean, what's surprising, actually, is that we're getting to a place where people are answering these polls honestly. The silent majority, it seems, has realized that silence didn't help. Silence is how we ended up with the current insanity that we have. But, here's why people are waking up. It's simple. I mean, they see Joe Biden. They see him with their own eyes, and they know that the man can barely form thoughts. And they also see Donald Trump, and whether they love the guy or hate the guy, they can actually see that he's got a handle on what is going on. He can actually communicate it. He's got a handle on what the causes are and hopefully what we can do to fix it. But they don't believe the government gaslight that he's just as old and just as goofy as Joe.
Yeah, actually, my tax policy, they created the greatest, strongest economy in the history of our country, probably in the history of the world. We had the strongest economy that we've ever had by far. And all Biden did was pick up on it, but he ruined it because he screwed up energy so badly that inflation went crazy. And now inflation's through the roof. They can't lower interest rates because if they do, you're going to drive up inflation to levels that nobody's ever seen before. We have among the highest inflation we've ever had. We've never had inflation like this, and it's sticking. It's not going down at all. where bacon and food products are costing double and triple what they were just a few years ago, where gasoline energy is way up and going up. If you notice over the last couple of weeks, gasoline and just fuel oil generally, but gasoline has gone way up.
People see this, man, and they hear the nonsense that the Democrats and their partners in the media have tried to convince them of. They hear powerful elites tell them every single day that nothing has ever been better, that they have never been better. But people know that that's just not right. That's not correct. The left, they believe so strongly in their ability to gaslight Americans on the economy that they literally named it after the president. And now there's no going back from that. They have no choice but to gaslight even harder.
But 2/3 of voters think the economy was better under President Trump.
Well, that's just not the case, and we have to do a better job of laying out the facts that the economy has dramatically improved under the leadership of President Joe Biden.
But if those are the facts, why don't voters believe it? Is that a communication problem?
Voters understand that more needs to be done, that there are challenges that remain.
Dude, just listen to freaking Hakeem Jeffries, man. Listen to what these people think the American people will actually believe. He says that anyone who thinks the economy is struggling, he says they're not struggling themselves. They just don't know the facts. You're not having a hard time. You just don't know the facts. You don't know how good you have it. He says that the economy has improved dramatically under Joe Biden's leadership and that the only reason the voters aren't happy is because they know that more needs to be done. How goofy is that? What these propaganda peddlers, people like Jeffries, what they expect people to do is look at all of Trump's 4 years, look at everything before right now in the snapshot of a pandemic. They want you to remember only a time when people were forced out of their businesses and into their homes, and they expect you to see the world as some sort of binary. It's the only thing they want you to see as a binary. Between Trump COVID and Joe Biden, the most prolific jobs creator the world has ever seen. And that's just not going to work.
So obviously we're here in Wisconsin. It was a crucial state for you, one of the ones that put you over the top. It was the same for Trump when he won in 2016. And he was actually here last week on his day off from the Stormy Daniels trial. He told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Mr. President, quote, "If everything's honest, I'd gladly accept the results of the election." And then he continued, though, with this: "If it's not, you have to fight for the right of the country." How seriously do you take that threat?
Seriously, just like I did January 6th. The guy is not a Democrat with a small d. He is the idea, look, you can't only love your country when you win, number one. How many court cases do they have? Supreme Court cases. They all said this is totally legitimate election. This is Trump. It's saying whether he may not accept the outcome of the election. I promise you he won't.
Promise that he won't.
He won't.
So,
which is dangerous. Look, I travel around the world with other world leaders. You know what they all say? Not a joke. 80% of them, after we have a major meeting, they go, "We've got to win. My democracy to stay. Their democracy to stay." Because when you think of the things he's saying, if I'm reelected, if he's reelected the president, he's going to make sure his attorney general prosecutes those he tells them to prosecute. And if he doesn't, he's going to fire
day.
On the first. Not just no. He said this about prosecution across the board. He's going to be, I am your retribution. What president's ever said anything like this stuff? But he means it. Going to wipe out the changes we made in Medicare, change we made in terms of drug prices, change we made. He's going to wipe it all out. And then he's going to put in a 10% tax, which is going to increase everybody's cost. The average American costs $1,500 a year. Listen to what he's saying.
The one thing he said was, listen to what he's saying. And I think that's really, really good advice. Listen to what he is actually saying. Not what the propagandists say he said. Hear what he actually said. And I think people are doing that. We see it in the polls regarding the media. People see them as a danger to democracy too. People do not trust the media. And why would they? Every word Trump has ever said has been clipped up and pounded into people's brains out of context and wrong. Whether it was about Mexicans, whether it was about very fine people, not remembering his wife's name, bloodbaths, shithole countries. Obviously, the list goes on and on and on and on. And those are the things that are actually on video, things you can prove or disprove, right? That's not even to mention all the insane things that no one actually heard him say, the things that can't be verified, things like dead soldiers being losers, people who've served being suckers. And no one reasonable has ever believed this nonsense. But the problem for the left is now no one believes them. You know, people finally see what is really going on because they have no choice but to see it. You can only push people so far. Eventually, everybody wakes up because they have no choice but to wake up. But that's just my take, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.